Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to House of Footy. We are back again with a full house. I'm Ray, your host for today, and alongside me are Gio
What is good, guys?
and Mac.
Good evening.
And today's podcast, we are reviewing the round of 16 fixtures for the FIFA 2022 World Cup. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Lastly, we are now uploading House of Footy YouTube videos, so please, if you can, like, comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. The link is in our bio on both Twitter and Instagram. But let's get straight into it. A lot of games to cover, and so we're gonna obviously touch on high level how each game went and some of our thoughts. Let's go straight into the first game of the round 16. The Netherlands versus the United States. Gio, you noticed here it's interesting to see how we thought the Netherlands would dominate in midfield, but it was actually the U.S. who actually, I guess, had a better showing in terms of that midfield dominance. And even early on, they had chances to score. Notably, it was I think Pulisic who could have made it 1-0. But yeah. Gio, let us know your thoughts.
I think it was actually quite interesting. It was definitely good for the U.S. because I think a lot of people were expecting them to sit a little bit more. But it was actually them who were on the front foot, trying to get an early goal, and I think that was a great game plan coming out. And it almost worked to perfection. Had Pulisic, put that away, early 1-0 lead, and you obviously don't know because Netherlands haven't been scoring a lot this World Cup. It could easily add to their struggles. It could easily flip that coin. With an early goal, but it's unfortunate that they didn't, and because they didn't, the Netherlands took advantage of their chances going forward.
Okay, Mac, did you see the game in a different way, or would you similarly agree with Gio?
I think it was a combination of two things. I think the United States probably looked at this game a little bit too simplistic, as in the whole game plan was really to stop the central attack more so from Gapco, as well as Depay, who ended up starting up top. That definitely seemed naive because the whole back four, which United States were playing with, always pressed and kind of collapsed centrally to be able to deny them any opportunities. But that left the two wide backs, both Daley Blind and Denzel Dumfries, free multiple times, and they both ended up scoring. So in some ways, it's a little bit naive on the American side, as well as Netherlands. This is really, for me, to take an analogy, their final form, because how they have to be successful in this tournament, if they're going to continue moving forward, is not to be the on-the-ball team, not to be the team with higher amounts of possession. Even though traditionally, going through history, they are a very strong side, they don't have the same level of talent as a lot of the other big teams. So to be able to sit back, absorb pressure, be very strong defensively, hit teams on the counter with very aggressive wide backs, that at the same time, because you're playing a back three, it's not as if you're losing any coverage there. It seems like a perfect way to be set up, and what they can now do going forward, because in the group stage game, they're playing against such weak opposition. There was no opportunity for them to be able to do that. So for me, in a lot of ways, it's I think you kind of can double down on the Americans. They don't have enough quality to, even if they have control of a game, like they did against England, like they did against Netherlands, to really put one away. And conversely, Netherlands understand kind of now what they need to do going forward and how they can potentially be more successful in this tournament.
Yeah, it's interesting. A Netherlands team really not having possession as their main form of, I guess, play style. Obviously, Netherlands and their history with sort of Johan Cruyff and the way that they play total football, trying to keep possession of the ball and everything. But yeah, I guess we really couldn't have predicted that the way that they actually got their goals was straight through wide backs. And I think, Gio, it's fair to say Denzel Dumfries was man of the match with his 2 assists and even getting on score sheet himself. I guess Dumfries, is that the guy that's in form along with Cody Gakpo to go in for the Netherlands into their, I guess, quarterfinal game?
Yes and no. I think it was just very fortunate that the U.S. defense was very they they didn't really communicate. As you guys, I don't know, to anybody who watched the game, uh, the first two goals were damn near identical.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it that way, it was a drive low and hard into the box by Dumfries, who obviously dominated his side of the field. And first it was Memphis, and then it was Daley Blind who actually slotted one home. And again, they looked exactly the same. Lack of communication, calling out the runners, things of that nature, was just very poor on the the US's part. And then, which again, if you're talking about poor communication from the defense, um, you know, because the Dutch overloaded on one side and the US sort of just overloaded with them, it left Dumfries out there wide open for the third goal. So again, the lack of communication, you I can't say you expect it from the US, but I don't think you'll expect it as much from the Argentinian side. Although the Argentinian side isn't great either, I think it is a good opportunity for the Dutch side to take advantage of that as well. So, not to count any side out, just because one team has Messi, and a lot of people do want to see him in the finals. The Dutch side have a very good chance going into the next game with the way, especially Dumfries is performing right now.
Dumfries definitely, at least for me, stand-up performer. But also, it's interesting to note Memphis Depay did start the game, did get on score sheet, Mac, and also I guess could have given away the I guess a goal for the U.S. with that back pass for Haji Wright when he was sort of inside his own box, and I think he was actually the player who lost the ball from that corner clearance that landed up to Pulisic, who found Wright. And I'm not sure if you guys saw how many replays of the goal you guys saw by Haji Wright. I don't know how he ended up putting that in the back of the net, but I guess props to them. But I guess yeah, Netherlands. I guess can you argue, Mac? They didn't really face up to now, like you mentioned, a really great offensive team so far, and how that would fare out in their next game potentially.
Absolutely. In terms of the quality they faced, they probably faced what the worst host nation in terms of football thus far. A Senegal team without Mane and Ecuador team that they barely were able to hang on for a tie, right? And now an American team that again had trouble scoring in the group stage, and that was definitely consistent in this game. The interesting part is that you still have to give them credit for their defensive kind of play style, because Klaassen, who we talked about, probably is not the most talented of their front three, and if you'd base on that, probably wouldn't be in the lineup, but he effectively did a man-matching job against Tyler Adams and was phenomenal defensively. Is if we can keep him out of the game, their transitional moments are not going to be as good. So even though he's kind of playing as a 10, his first priority was the defensive aspect of it. So yes, they haven't faced a quality attacking team as of yet, but they can build a foundation. Is that as long as you don't concede, you have a chance to go through every single round, right? So even though, of course, they did end up conceding this game, at that point they already had a fair lead. So I still think they're a team that can be dangerous. I do question if you're effectively able to cut them out of transition, similar to what they did against the United States. How effective are they on the ball? I think that's been shown out that they're not the greatest. But in this game, they really didn't have to worry about it at that, because the U.S. were more than comfortable. You know what? We'll try to get at you. We'll try to see if we can take our chances. We'll try to be a match winner. Unfortunately, especially up top, even though Haji Wright did end up scoring, I don't think we should really count that as his goal. They're missing a striker. If you're playing against a solid number 9, let's say a la Olivier Giroud is in that American front line, dumping those balls into those box, he's going to cause more problems. He's going to be able to kind of create more opportunities and punish a team that's just going to sit back like this. So it'll be interesting how they adjust, but fortunately enough for them, they faced a team that weren't able to do that. It's still, though, on the American plus side, a lot of people, and even I think us, we had Wales going through the group stage, if I recall correctly, on our podcast, where we didn't think much of this American team. So it's credit to them that they've gotten this far, but they still need a couple of better players. They are a young team if they want to be able to take kind of a next step going into the next tournament, next World Cup.
just just wanted to make sure Gio was actually the only one out of us that really thought the US would overtake the Welsh team. But so let me get Gio right before we move on past this game to give us his final thoughts on how the US did this tournament.
Uh, First of all, thanks for the shout out. Put some respect on my name. But no, to be honest, I don't think um, the U.S. were as good as people were kind of talking up to be. I just thought they were better than Wales and had a better shot at making it out of the group stage. But yeah, in terms of the midfield, other than really Tyler Adams out there, just being able to sort of change the tempo for them, I thought the rest of the U.S. team was fairly subpar. They had the one performance against the U.S., but just weren't clinical enough. But other than that, um, it was very fortunate to for them to get out of the group stages, and I thought the result was exactly what I expected in terms of their result for the tournament. This was their best case scenario, and it just shows that there's still plenty of work for them to do. Like, of course, their talent, their level of talent has risen, significantly, and I think they have a good chance of the next World Cup in terms of being more of a threat. You let those players kind of gain more experience in the European world of football, and hopefully that will translate onto the international side.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye out on how that national team fares in the next couple of years, as they obviously prepare for the World Cup that will be hosted by the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But let's move on to the next game. Mac, I think you were watching this one along when we were actually recording our last podcast, Argentina versus Australia. Um, Argentina winners at the end of the day, but I think it's fair to say that they made it a little bit more difficult for themselves that they needed to. But I think overall, Argentina deserved to win with the chances that they created. So give us some of your thoughts for the game.
I thought Argentina were a much better team, and you can see them growing out throughout the tournament. Game after game, you can see the improvements in terms of what they want to accomplish on the pitch. I think the scoreline is very generous to Australia, giving kind of the amount of opportunities that Australia should have put away. They did make it difficult themselves, of course, conceding against a really good goal. You got to give them credit to that, as well as a couple last seconds. Martinez has to be able to make a big save to secure the win, but you the interesting part was because of Di Maria's injury, they had to start with a front two of Martinez and Alvarez, which they haven't done thus far this tournament. But that further put Argentina in the place where we could only attack centrally. And as long as Australia stayed in a bank of a 4-4-2 and really covered the midfield, crowded the midfield, pushed Messi as deep far back to be able to pick up the ball, it really delayed a lot of kind of and negated a lot of their attacking influence, where an option out wide wasn't really strong enough there to be able to take a player one-on-one and create an opportunity. Even though they did create a fair amount, and Martinez should have probably had, what, three goals, I would say? Probably? No?
Dude, for sure.
I was playing soccer the other day, and we saw a guy completely shoot the ball over the net, and he's like, "Oh, Martinez!" Right? Immediately, that was the initial reply. I was like, "Wow, it's too soon." But no, overall, you got to be, if you're coaching Argentina, you got to be happy with a lot of the positives, especially Messi looking at his best. I know it's against a weaker Australia side, but now for them going forward, the tournament really begins. So they really still have all to play for. But the interesting part will be is, do they move back to kind of that? If Di Maria is healthy, does he go back on the wing? Martinez is probably gone. May not see him unless he comes on for a sub for the rest of this tournament, I would assume. And if that's the case, they have a almost as good of shot of any team to continue pushing forward.
Ooh, yeah, for sure. On the score sheet, Lionel Messi and Julian Alvarez. Alvarez again getting on the score sheet, so that's something I'm watching out for. But Gio, what stood out to you in this game?
Messi is ageless, man. When he's moving off ball, it just shows the level. Like, bro, the level of separation is crazy. Like Max said, Australia did a fairly decent job of like keeping most of the Argentinian attack at bay, but you take your eyes off Messi for a second, and he makes that 1-2 give and go, and makes that move. it's, hey man, it's lights out right there, and Messi in that spot is almost kind of automatic. So seeing it all come into fruition, watching it on TV, I know we've seen it a lot, but every time we see it, it's just very very nice to see. But yeah, in terms of how Australia attacked when they were when it was late in the game and they were only down 2-1, you saw
Mhm.
how kind of almost shaky Argentina's defense can get, and almost that kind of almost worries. I think it should worry Argentinian fans because now they have to face a stronger offensive side. Because what if it's not? I think Bajcic is his name. The Australian left back who's
Left
actually
back,
making
yeah.
great drives into the box. But what if it's Cody Gakpo this time? Driving. They they should see. Now I'm just really worried about how Argentina is really gonna defend against the side. But back to this game. I mean, Australia put up a good fight. I mean, as well as they could. But I think Argentina going into the next game have a lot to worry about in terms of how they're going to really stop this, you know, Dutch front three, because didn't look that great in with their back line at least.
Yeah, obviously we're gonna preview that game as well in our next podcast. But just also wanted to mention, yeah, Gio, they're only down 2-1, and the second goal they conceded, as I mentioned by Julian Alvarez, Matt Ryan. I don't know what he's trying to do in this situation. Obviously, he collects the ball, tries to play it out quick, but the press by Rodrigo De Paul just makes it impossible for them to play out. Ball comes back to him, and his first touch is really on, gets it trapped under his feet. Second touch tries to split the two defenders as a goalkeeper, and then at that point, like you just put yourself in a situation where you can't really succeed. But I gotta give them credit; they did get one back off the deflection off of Enzo Fernandez. And hey, Mac, I know you watched that the plays at the end of the game very very closely. That cool one-on-one against Emi Martinez, that save that he had, and then all the Argentine players piling on. How does that make you feel? Does that give you some more confidence in this Argentina backline?
No, to be completely honest, no, not at all. You can definitely see in certain moments, I don't trust the Otamendi Romero duo. That for me is a little bit too sus. I don't like it. It leaves me a lot of questions to be asked. And you definitely, for me, that duo together in a one-on-one situation, I don't really trust them. Comparing to adding, Gio's favorite player, Sandro Martinez, to the back line, playing him essentially for either one of those two. At least in a one-on-one situation, he's at the very least going to take the guy down. Versus Otamendi is so slow now he can't even reach the guy to take him down. It's rough days out there for them. So no, not at all. Their really hope is more for that midfield pressure, because when you're playing with Messi, you have Rodrigo, you have Enzo Fernandez, and you have McAllister that are there just as the hustle mans. They want to be able to close down, press, and do all the leg running for the entire team. And if they're good enough, then the defense doesn't become as much of a question mark. Unfortunate part is DePaul hasn't been in the greatest form, hasn't really looked the best in my opinion. So he's been iffy for me, whereas McAllister and Hernandez have looked really, really good. So for them to continue on, I think it's less so. You got to expect you can't hope for a bigger game from the defenders. It's more DePaul. He needs to go back to the player that he was, especially in the Copa America just over a year ago, right? So that's more so what they need to be successful, in my opinion, than hoping for their defense to turn a corner.
Yeah, obviously we'll watch as well how Argentina. First, we're gonna preview how they're gonna set up, and then how they play against the Netherlands, who they will be facing in the next stage of the quarterfinals. But for now, guys, let's take a quick break here, and then let's come back with some more round of 16 action. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our round of 16 review, and the next game we're going to talk about now is France 3, Poland 1. Yeah, and so, Gio, you mentioned here the game started as we expected, with Poland really absorbing a lot of that French offensive pressure. I think both teams exchanged shots from outside the box pretty early on, but honestly, how can you contain the man in form, Olivier Giroud, who actually becomes France's all-time leading goal scorer, overtaking Henry with that goal that he got in this game. So, Gio, give us some of your thoughts for this game.
I thought, for the most part, apart from obviously Giroud getting, you know, finishing a very nice pass. It was good movement to get that goal. But apart from that, I think Poland in general, did a very good job in terms of containing Mbappe. Especially Matty Cash. I do have to give him a lot of credit there. He kept up with him on his runs. He frustrated him. Uh, gave him a bump every time he was close, just to make sure that he was there, or let him know he was there. And you could tell the frustration was really building with Mbappe. They were almost looking at other options because his typical runs weren't almost coming into fruition because of Matty Cash. So other than that, I thought Poland was solid, but again, because they were down early or down for the most part of the game, there comes a point in time where you're eventually going to have to attack and try to get this win, and that's where France benefited on the counterattack. Really opened up the pitch again for none other than Mbappe, who took advantage every single time after that.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought it was to begin with, the game was more controlled by France, but still not a lot of indication that it's going to go one way or the other. 37 minutes in, Zelensky gets a chance, cut back to him, and he shoots it straight at Hugo Lloris. And in that chance, you really have to convert because just a few minutes later, I think 6 minutes later, Mbappe, like you said, Gio, finds Giroud, who, man, we have to just praise the ability to just find space and finish, because I think a lot of players in that position could just scuff it and just mishit it or whatnot, and just Giroud is able to put it in and just puts that pressure off of France. And then, like you guys said, like you said, Gio, the France are able to run up the score towards the end of the game. But Mac, what did you think about this game?
I liked a couple of things that Gio said, and I think I agree with him in terms of, for large portions of this game, early on, like the first 37 minutes, as you talked about, I would say Poland were the better team. And if you are a French fan, you'd be very nervous in terms of that team's performance. Understand Deschamps, he plays very tournament football where he is more conservative. He wants to just try not to lose the game and hope they have enough quality up top to win them the game, which they did in this case. But it is disappointing that one moment that they switch off just right before halftime in the 44th minute, that allowing Giroud to get space to be able to get in behind, which it takes a lot because he's not the fleetest of foot. It's tough, and that's not something that you want to be able to kind of handle at that moment. Given if you just hang out for a little bit longer, then you're going into halftime in a good position with still a chance to steal a game against a team that you're expected to lose against. The interesting part for France, in terms of what Gio was saying, in terms of the movement, if you see like the heat map as well as the pass map for the French team, you see Mbappe, Giroud, Griezmann, Rabiot, and Theo Hernandez. They're all very, very close together. So they're all compiled on that left wing, where that's where most of the possession was for a lot of the game when they're trying to create opportunities. On the complete other side of the pitch was Ousmane Dembele, who was isolated one-on-one for majority of the game. So you could see a lot of the French players are trying to adapt, realizing Mbappe wasn't given the time and space that he would normally have. Let's see if we can link play and create something. They ended up being fortunate enough to do something through Giroud. Interesting part would be is if going forward is that kind of more so they need to figure out ways to better utilize Mbappe against the low block. Maybe there are different ways that we can create from there. Or a couple times early on this game, I know that he made a couple mistakes early, but when they did switch it over to Dembele in the first half for me, I thought that's when they looked the best, because he's one of the few players where he's just as dangerous going left on his favorite foot as he is going right on his right foot. And if he had a little bit of maybe finer moments, maybe a little bit more, showed his quality a little bit more, France could have got out to even earlier lead. So it's interesting to see how now going to the knockout rounds, how aggressive France are going to be, how much they're going to cater towards Mbappe and try to create chances through him. And if that will lead them to success, especially against a team that really for the first 44 minutes had figured out them defensively, in my opinion. So overall, unfortunate for Poland. And it's interesting. Even I was looking at the expected goals. If you take out the penalty, I know that's a big factor. But France and Poland for expected goals were right in line with each other. So it wasn't, even though this game seemed in quality wise very, very separate between the two, in terms of chances, there wasn't much.
Right, that's fair. It really, I guess, came down towards the end, and we obviously mentioned Giroud now. Myself, Mac, you mentioned Dembele as a possible way for them to maybe switch up the style of play for attacking. But at the end of the day, Kylian Mbappe has now 9 World Cup goals at the age of 23. Gio, you did mention Matty Cash did a fairly good job for him against them, but he still ended up with 2 goals. And I'm not sure if you saw the goals, just unstoppable goals, I think. The first one near post, and then the next one far post. Just how good is Mbappe, Gio? And really, do you think he can continue that goal-scoring form throughout the next stages of this tournament?
It's gonna be interesting because at this point we all know who they're facing next, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more in the preview episode. But against England, who I would say their back line has been the most consistent. I think Mac mentioned this in a previous podcast of ours, and he did mention that, and I would agree. It's been the most consistent. But again, do they change? Does England change their sort of backline formation to sort of match France's? Things of that nature. It's going to be an interesting matchup. But again, with that type of speed, whoever is guarding him that day, whether it be Kyle Walker or Kieran Trippier, it's going to be a great matchup, and I want to see how, if at this stage he's able to dominate against a team like England. It's going to be it's going to be sad days for the rest of the world.
Especially at 23 years old. Hey, man, it's fun to watch.
Sorry, to jump in there, I want to talk about Mbappe too. The amount of backlift he has for a shot is obscene with the amount of power that he can drive into it. And even for that goal, if you watch, because at that point, I think it was 1-1. It was the 2-1 goal, if I remember correctly.
Mm.
No, sorry. It took them to 2-0. My apologies. If you watch Giroud's movement, he's wide open on the far post and kind of asking for a cross. And you can see Mbappe looks at him, right? He makes eye contact with them. He's like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to shoot. And I think this is interesting because if that's Benzema, I think he tries to cross it and it doesn't go through. So I think that to him not being part of the team where now Mbappe is the main focal point of the team. And he gets to cook, he gets to make the decision. And if Giroud, yes, he's the nation's all-time leading goal scorer, he's not going to say shit, right? Nobody's going to say shit on that team to him or will have kind of the same stature of player where he knows, you know what? No, this is my time to kind of steal the game. And he did. So for them, I think it's very interesting for me. I would say that they probably have, in terms of a front four, counting Griezmann in as well, it's probably as clean, as seamless as one as you can expect in a national team. So they are definitely a dangerous team, and Mbappe's the tip of the spear, and he's without a doubt the best player.
Oh yeah. That being said, Mbappe team Lewandowski did get that goal at the end of the game, but just before we wrap up this part, can we just quickly talk about the run up to his goal, first penalty that was actually saved by Hugo Lloris? I'm not sure if you guys saw it, Mac. The way he sort of strolls up, I don't know, does a hop. I don't know how many things he tries to do, but poor penalty for that type of caliber of play.
I don't know if people are just tired when they're trying to take penalties. I know we'll go on to this later, but like the run ups consistently, it's just lazy and nonchalant, as if you don't give a fuck. Or I was watching a video of like penalties from like the 90s, and mans are like sprinting from the halfway pitch. No, we're trying to slam this in. Versus guys, just delicately placing it right beside the goalkeeper and hoping they dive the other way. So it's. I understand you're trying to throw off the rhythm of the keeper. You're trying to kind of distract them. You're trying to play mind games with them. I get that, but guess what? You're gonna play yourself, and that's what he did with that first one. I know he did the second thing right afterwards and did the exact same movement, but that shot could have been as easily saved again. It wasn't that much better. So I don't know if there's an analytics behind it where that's going to be more likely to lead to a goal. I've not seen numbers like that, so I don't know why people are doing it. Other than I blame Bruno. Let's or Pogba. Who do you blame more, Bruno or Pogba? They're the ones that started this, right?
No. The hop, skip, and the jump, that is Jorginho,
Jorginho.
okay? Relax.
No, but wasn't Bruno doing that first? No.
No, Jorginho's
Okay.
always been doing it since
Okay.
the
Jorginho's-
Italian
You
league.
know me. If it's Jorginho, I'm more than happy to blame him. You know, I'll be first in that. Like, I'll have the pitchfork and signs, and I'm there. So if it is him, sure, okay, fine. I'll blame Jorginho.
Hey man,
I don't like it.
it just doesn't look, first of all, convincing, and then the result that you get from it is just not good. But
I'm sorry. I want to ask you a quick question. I know that this is a little bit different.
Sure.
Would you rather, as a player, in terms of, I think I've had this conversation with Ray with you a long time ago. Do you know the underhanded free throw in basketball, right? It's actually more statistically likely to go in, but no one shoots it because it looks weird, right? Do they think that it looks weird if you don't do the run up and that you're like missing out on something, or you're not one of the cool kids because you're not doing it right? Is it the same mentality where, you know what? No, this is what everyone's doing now. I need to do it too because it seems like it's the better way to go about it. Or are people just, are they just trying to be something that they're not in a way? Do you know what I mean?
I think it's more so keepers nowadays just so big and are so athletic that they can get to most places, most spots to cover that net, and so they're just trying to add another level to just try to psych out the keepers. But honestly, if you hit a penalty well, place it well with enough power, chances are it's going to go in. That's my opinion. What do you think, Gio?
Yeah, honestly, power beats this whole try to deceive the keeper thing. If he's athletic enough, he can probably, and the ball's going slow enough, keeper can probably make an adjustment. Why not just rip it by him? So, yeah, no, I'm tired of these cute little. I mean, apart from Panenka, in certain situations.
We'll go to that later.
We'll get to that a little later, but other than the Panenka, I can't really see these slow run ups and little pass it into the net things really being too effective.
Fair. So let's move on, guys, to another game that took place. England 3, Senegal 0. I guess the first thing that we got to talk about is that England starting lineup. We really predicted that Rashford giving his run of form would start, but obviously we saw Foden starting instead. I think it was reported after, or at least I saw it after that, Raheem Sterling was actually left out of the squad. He had to travel home due to private personal reasons, but that really led the way for Southgate to go with a bold decision on that left hand side. Went with Foden, and so it proved a good choice. Mac, what did you think of this game?
I thought similar to France in a lot of ways, and it was kind of freaky. For the first 30 minutes, the game was much more even than the scoreline suggests. Senegal had a big opportunity through Sarr. He missed a phenomenal chance that, in all reality, if that's supposed to be real here, if that's Mane, that's probably going into the back of the net. So it's unfortunate in that manner that's what happened. But after that moment, it really clicked with England, where through kind of good plays through both Bellingham and Foden flicking around to Kane putting Bellingham through, and of course Bellingham passing to Liverpool legend Henderson. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of the game, where Bellingham and Foden in a lot of ways ran the show in terms of their Bellingham's drives to be able to get in behind, to be able to make those athletic runs, and Foden with some quick, cute touches to be able to get around defenders. Where that set the stage for the rest of the game, where after that they got that goal, they got into a groove. And at that point, it was really the only team was one going to win. So overall, if you're watching that game as an England fan, you got to be happy with majority of the team's performance throughout majority of the game. So a lot of positives to take from it.
I guess same question to you, Gio. Rashford, you'd expect him with that run of form to get that start, but honestly, with Foden playing this way and sort of giving them another sort of way to attack teams, it could be a way going forward. What did you think, Gio?
Listen, other than the fact that Rashford didn't start, that kind of disappointed me. Maybe because he was in play, but who's to say? But the fact of the matter is, whether it be who's ever playing on the opposite side of Foden, I think always benefits. Always his offensive ability in terms of finding the open guy or looking for the open guy or just looking to get balls into the box really benefits everybody else around him. And I think the key thing is not Rashford over anybody else. It's that it should have always been Foden starting from the very beginning. But so Southgate being Southgate likes to try certain things that people aren't necessarily the happiest with. But no, I think Foden will continue to get the start. I mean, I hope so. At this point, nobody can guarantee who will get a start. But it would shock me if Foden didn't get a start at this point.
Yeah, Matt.
I think the interesting part for that is, does Southgate look at these as matchups less so, more towards this is my starting 11? Because I think the argument would be to teams the quality of maybe his winger players isn't to as much of a degree as maybe some people would think. I would disagree with that, of course. I think Foden is in a class of his own on that team, kind of with Kane in that world class, maybe Bellingham showing up. But the difference would be is that he's like, you know what? Depending on the team and the play style that we're facing against, let me try different types of wingers that can maybe be more accessible on one game versus another. And less so is like, this is my starting 11. I'm going to stick by it no matter what. I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Where in this game, facing a team with their offensive talent was really on their left-hand side, we want more of a defensive presence like Saka, who's much better at coming back, helping out his defenders, and maybe taking a player one-on-one for it. So you're going to get more natural help in that position against a team with a player like Sar, and that was really their focal point, versus Rashford on that right-hand side. And on the left-hand side, maybe kind of a little bit different, where we need somebody to drag players out of place, not necessarily to go in behind, but to show short and link play so other players can get in behind. So I think it's more matchup-based, and that's why going forward, I wouldn't be shocked if any kind of permutation of a front three is played, as long as Kane's in the middle with Southgate. So overall, he played the right call. He played the right cards. He's done well thus far, and given the fact that he has a good track history in tournaments, you've got to, at least in the initial game plan, initial lineup that he plays with, does very, very well. So you got to give Southgate credit there for sure.
Yeah, just wanted to quickly mention you did mention there players that play around Kane, but it is very important, I think, that Kane actually, I think if I'm not mistaken, this was his first goal so far this tournament, and he took it well. Like I said about Giroud, Kane obviously one of the best strikers in the world, and if he's able to take that and finish that chance in a 3-0 game against Senegal, what a way for them to really continue this tournament. And Gio, honestly, England, that bench with the likes of, obviously Rashford coming on, you could have also Callum Wilson, who's been playing well, James Maddison, who has had a terrific start to the season, Jack Grealish, then you have options, right? So I guess, yeah, to that point that Max said, there are just maybe different ways to approach different games, but there is enough depth in that England team in terms of going forward. What do you think, Gio?
I agree with the depth. I think they have a lot of options and allows kind of Southgate to rotate and kind of play for matchups as opposed to, again, what Max said, best 11. But can we just have a moment of silence to whoever team's bank account is gonna buy Jude Bellingham, because that boy was, again, phenomenal. That game, leading the counter, finding the through balls, finding the right pass, giving Jordan Hendo, getting assist from the Jordan Hendo goal. It was phenomenal to watch. It was.
They were about to get arrested with how close they are at Qatar, bro.
Yeah, no, I swear to God, like, it was just like, whoa, guys, can we get some space in between you guys? Because
it's all love.
Hey,
did you guys see the clip of after the game? A Qatari man was in front of Hendo and Bellingham and asking, okay, so where are you gonna go? You should come to Madrid. You should come to Madrid. And Henderson's like, he's not going to fucking Madrid, right? He's so angry. He's like, and he's like, oh yeah, the Champions League final. Oh yeah, okay, maybe not Madrid, but like, And then Bellingham just consistently, because how close reports have been getting that he and Henderson have been coming off the pitch. I know, Ray, that'll make your day. So congratulations. But the amount of times he's getting asked about Liverpool, I feel bad. I feel bad for the kid. Let him enjoy his time, but he's definitely going to be expensive. You're absolutely right, Gio.
Yeah, no.
This is yeah.
Yeah, no. So RIP to whoever's bank account. Just a moment of silence there. But no, he's just phenomenal. And he's been probably England's most consistent player, I'd say. You know, I mean, apart from Kane, I think
Maguire.
I mean, apart from Kane, I would say Jude has a guaranteed starting spot. And it's hard for anybody to argue that he wouldn't get a starting spot on that team now.
Yeah, for sure. This is, I think, elite level tampering. But obviously, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see. At the end of the day, maybe it's gonna have to be two clubs that put in enough money to maybe Chelsea and Liverpool do a 2-year contract for Liverpool and a 2-year contract for Chelsea. Because, like you said, that amount of money that they're gonna pay for him, ridiculous. Just before we wrap up this part of the podcast, though, I just wanted to say, Gio, when you said moment of silence, I did want to say, genuinely, very sad that Senegal is now out of the World Cup because that support that they brought along with them, regardless of if they're winning or losing, it's going to be sad not to see sort of their fans in the crowd. But yeah, this will wrap up this part right here, and then we'll be back with more round of 16 action. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are continuing our round of 16 review with Japan 1, Croatia 1, 3-0 in penalties for Croatia. This is probably a game that we thought Croatia would dominate in midfield and in general, but that really wasn't the case, Gio. I think you noted here both teams had plenty of chances, and time after time they could have taken the lead, each team, in the first half. So, Gio, what did you think of this game?
Honestly, there were a fair amount of chances, but it didn't really drag my attention in. Maybe because it didn't have as much action as other games, but more so a. I mean, it just really wasn't it for me. Although you want Japan to do well, I think you and I both obviously wanted Japan to do very well. Max shocked here, but I don't think he was one of those guys who really wanted Japan to make it out the group. But but yeah, no, it was. I mean, for a neutral, it wouldn't have been the best game, but there was a lot of good, very fundamental soccer, a little bit more tactics going on here. But yeah, it just wasn't really much in terms of the 2 goals, and then obviously leading into penalties, and we all know what happened there, which was quite disappointing and quite shocking.
Yeah, 2 goals. Just want to quickly mention them. One by Maeda and the second one by Perisic, both coming from crosses, which interesting. The Japan team, I think, you just looking at them watching the game, they are quite a smaller team, and so just wanted to point that out that in these situations you obviously don't want to just cross the ball into the box and hope for a header. What they've done there is go short for a corner and try to drag the defensive line up, put the ball in, someone hopefully gets a knockdown and puts it in. But on the flip side, that Perisic goal to tie it up, great ball by none other than Dejan Lovren, and then Perisic just gets great contact. No chance for the keeper Gonda. But Matt, what were your thoughts for this game?
I feel like I deserve 130 minutes back to my life. It was taken off. This game, I did have chances, but there was not an outstanding save or a great contact from a shot that was so close. It was like, you know what, we're in a good position, but they scuffed the shot or trip over their own feet. It just was lacking that couple of moments more of quality from either team, or even just to make it a little bit more exciting, a big mistake. Neither of those things really happened. The one moment of quality came from, in my opinion, from the game was the Perisic header. Very few times you see a header from 15 yards scored, but that's as perfect a corner as you can pick. He was able to kind of tuck that in, so good on him for that. But overall, neither of those. If either of these teams had come through, they're going to be heavy underdogs going against Brazil. And either way, if given both teams' performances, they would have been even heavier underdogs. Because it was very, very poor. Croatia did have a lot of the ball. Their midfield rotation was decent, but they just lack quality up top, right? Where Perisic, who normally plays as a left wing back for Spurs, was probably their major goal threat. Hammerich was invisible. I don't even the other players that they have did not perform well. So I think there's a lot of negatives and a lot of bad feelings I'm feeling towards Croatia given this performance and how much they made me suffer. So I'm just hopeful that they get knocked out as well as soon as possible. Please.
Yeah, before we move on to who they will face in the next stages, which is Brazil, just quick mention for the penalty shootout. Obviously, not the greatest in terms of quality. And even though Livakovic, the goalkeeper for Croatia, I guess penalty hero, he did save 3 penalties. Not bad. Like, they weren't great penalties, but throughout the tournament, he hasn't really, I think, made a big mistake, and he's been pretty consistent. 27 years old, plays for Dinamo Zagreb. Honestly, I could see him moving into the EPL. Maybe a team in the middle of the table could pick him up, or he could go to one of the quote unquote top 5 European leagues and do a decent job for any of those competing teams for the Champions League positions. Just wanted to quickly mention that because he obviously, like you guys said, not a lot stood out, but I think he definitely has been a better standout player for Croatia. I guess let's move on to Brazil, Korea. Brazil 4, Korea 1. Gio, you mentioned it's a dance fest, but Mac, 4-1 Korea, 4-0, 4 unanswered goals, but 3 unanswered goals before the fourth one went in, and then Korea got theirs back. What did you think of this game, Mac?
So I want to say going into the game, I predicted a 3-2 win for Brazil. So by amount of goals scored, I was accurate in terms of the feeling of how close the game was. I could not be more wrong. So it's very interesting that way. Brazil, they were that cutting edge, that class above. The tough part is for South Korea, you go into this game and you're down a goal within the first 10 minutes. That's worst case scenario. A fire alarm bells ringing all across the team. And to quickly concede after that, you've already killed yourself in the entire game because Brazil, defensively, thus far this tournament, has been very, very strong. And I think Alisson is right now, I think he's the leading odds maker for the Golden Glove. So you've already dug yourself too much of a hole to really kind of get back into the game. So at that point, it was really over. And at that point, I was able to turn off the game and then go back and rewatch it later much quicker. So I don't have to really sit through the rest of it. So overall, Brazil looked very, very dangerous. Neymar came back to play. He looked very, very good. That front four looks smooth and clean. They can kind of really do what they want. And that's including a player that I know Gio hates, Richarlison. So it all just worked out for a perfect Brazilian day. Right, Gio?
Listen, I would just like to just add this.
Sorry, Gio, your voice is cutting out for me. My apologies.
Sorry. I only hate them when they're in their Spurs kits.
Okay, sure.
Now, because they're international kits, hey, they can flourish all they want, man. They can dance, they can do whatever they need to do. But just to add, my 2 cents into the game, Brazil did what Brazil was gonna do. I expected this. Surprisingly, did not see. Honestly, that Richarlison goal, great off-ball movement, great finish. Just not what you're used to him doing at Spurs, really. He's more of that gritty player at Spurs, where you see a lot of like tap in or a lot of scrappy goals that he would score, and I think this is the one game where Brazil really put a lot away and had fun scoring goals, as you can see by the amount of dances they were doing, which honestly does not bode well for Croatia, because if they've unlocked this level of scoring, ball movement, cohesiveness at this stage of the tournament, and only to do it at this stage of the tournament is definitely a scary sight for Croatia. And if I'm Croatia, no matter how well the backline has performed up until then, you have to be there has to be concern there. And just another thing to add, just very shocked not to see tears from Son after the game, the way they got demolished. I think it was just too large of a gap that it wasn't close, so it hurt less. But not to create any enemies, especially of Korean fans. No disrespect, but We saw this coming. We saw this coming.
I guess just quickly on that Korean talk. Obviously, the great volley by Paik Sung Ho, who had a I guess one of the goals of the tournament. I think beating Allison, who on that day really looked like he was gonna keep a clean sheet. So that's a great goal for them. But honestly, yeah, Brazil. It's scary as well that Neymar, Richarlison, Vinicius, and Paqueta got on the score sheet. So now you have a lot of these players firing. Even Rafinha looked good and playing his role on that right hand side, really not stepping on anyone's toes and being another option, sort of, I guess, a little bit like Dembele for France. And we'll see how they bode well in the next couple of games. But yeah, if you have your coach joining you in the dances, celebrating 3-0 inside the first half, it just tells you how it's going to go. And in Brazil, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw it online that they were the first team to feature all players, all the 26 players in the World Cup so far. Even the backup goalkeepers got in to this game. So, hey, all Brazil to go for now, and definitely we'll be watching that. So let's move on, guys. Morocco nil, Spain nil, and very much like that Japan Croatia shootout. I think it's fair to say it was quite underwhelming. Gio, Morocco, Spain. We thought Spain would dominate a lot of the ball, but didn't have enough to go ahead in regular time. What did you think of this game?
Some call it a boring game, but I call it a classic Jose Mourinho masterclass. So, so to those who didn't understand, Morocco knew, what facilities they had, and they did exactly, and they executed exactly what they wanted to do. They sat in a low block, and as the game progressed, as the pressure mounted, that block went even lower. And for a team to sit in this formation for 120 odd minutes is phenomenal discipline. And for them not to slip up, not even once. Of course, there were chances where Spain almost had a goal, nick off the post, shot cleared almost off the line or inside the 6-yard box. They still kept very sound, and I guess, as I think Rodri came out to say that Morocco did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. They were waiting for the counter, and that's how they moved on. Well, yeah, you couldn't stop nothing though, so, or you couldn't get by nothing. So to that, I think that's harsh. That's probably out of frustration. But props to Morocco. They did a fantastic job. The discipline was absolutely phenomenal from them. And, the way it ended, we'll get into that, but the way it ended was just chef's kiss after that.
Okay, Mac, any additional thoughts to Gio's Jose Mourinho masterclass?
No, he's absolutely spot on. They knew the mission that they had to do, and they did what they needed to do to be successful, and probably their only realistic path to make it through to the next round. They become the fourth African team to make the quarterfinals in World Cup history, and the first one, I think, since Ghana since 2010, if I remember correctly, right? Of course, we've already talked extensively about what happened to that team. Either way, I think what's disappointing for me for Spain is that they started Asensio. I don't get it. He's not been on a good run of form for Real Madrid. I don't think he plays, nor he should deserve to. For Spain, he's starting as a number 9, and that's not even his most preferred position. And yes, to the discredit of people may hate Almorata, but once he came on, they look more likely to score. He may not always be clinical 100% of the time, but he's going to be in a good position to at least give himself an opportunity to score. And I thought that's what we're missing for the first 70 odd minutes from Spain. So I'm very disappointed in that. So that part I don't understand. I'm disappointed in that, as well as kind of what we were talking about going into the game. I thought Gavi and Pedri, they're going to do well. They're going to be able to rotate the ball enough. The question would be with the wide players when they're on one-on-one situations, will it be aggressive, efficient, and willing to take a player one-on-one? For those split couple seconds, they do have that one-on-one opportunity. And you didn't get that, not just from only Asensio, but anyone across the front three. So for me, that's where I feel like they more so lost the game. it's completely separately from the penalty shootout. So disappointing that Spain wasn't able to kind of perform as they would normally have done. But full credit to Morocco. You love this is kind of one of the good things about the World Cup, in my opinion, where you have an underdog team like this from a smaller nation that hasn't done this before and kind of surpasses all expectations. And the celebrations afterwards were fantastic. So full credit to them and happy to see them move on. And happy that we got at least one underdog in the round of 16 to go through.
Fair. So I guess let's quickly, before we move on from this game, talk about that penalty shootout. Honestly, I don't know why Busquets is still on the pitch after 90 minutes. He's one of the penalty takers that, of course, Bono goes on to say the penalty shot of Gio. What were your reactions to
a penalty pass? That's not a shot.
Penalty pass. Fair. Gio, your thoughts to that Hakimi winner?
Ballsy, very ballsy. To put your team through to the quarterfinal at that state, where the entire world almost counted you out, expecting a pretty dominant Spain performance, and for a defender at that, to be born in Spain, to grow up in Spain, to understand the Spanish culture, to knock Spain out with a Panenka was, and then to hit a Jalen Waddle Selly was, the Penguin Selly was so meme worthy and so, I was at a loss for words, but it was amazing to see.
Yeah, for sure. Though I do have a little bit of a, I guess for me, that penalty, the pressure that he had was not as much as, let's say, Benzema against Man City, where he had to score in that Champions League semifinal round, where Spain didn't score a single penalty. So I thought it was a great way to really cap it off, but I just thought it wasn't as pressurized a situation as many make it out to seem. But again, Morocco, great job. Mac?
Yeah, I was going to say is that he's like, what? I don't care if I score. Bono's going to save the next one too. Like, that's supposedly Luis Enrique is like, after the Euros, they assigned 1,000 penalty shots per player. That's their homework to be able to do. Let's just say no one did their fucking homework. I think that's fair to assume because all of them missed. And I think Bono, if he had another one, probably would have saved that too. I think the interesting part is that the first two penalty shot takers, they were both subs. One of them, Sarabia, he came on in the last couple of minutes. So I think this needs to stop happening. These last-minute substitutions for players that are there for just the penalties doesn't seem to work out so well. So we can hopefully just shelve that. Please, Southgate, shelve that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, well, definitely we'll see how Morocco do in the next stages. But I guess talking now about the team that they will face in the next quarterfinal match. Portugal 6, Switzerland 1. Mac, we thought this game was going to be close. Really wasn't at the end of the day. And a standout performer, obviously, Gonzalo Ramos. Really, really impressive with his hat trick. So, Mac, what did you think of this game?
You're absolutely correct. We thought it would be a close game, but Portugal didn't have to start Ronaldo, so you can expect a better performance from the team, right? Where you get more of a team performance. We agree, Gio? But I'm sorry. So, moving past that, the interesting part though is where in a lot of the games for Portugal when they play, they are just trying to lump a ball into the box for Ronaldo to latch onto and see what creative opportunities they're able to get from that. When you're offering a different striker opportunity, what that does, it gives you more flexibility in the lineup, more rotation, more kind of more different areas of the pitch that you could potentially attack the opposition. And against a Swedish team that, Switzerland team that was not expecting this change. Let's be real here. Everyone online was expecting something different. So they probably felt left for a loop where they weren't anticipating this adjustment. So their game plan had completely changed because the expected star lining up with the other team was different. So credit to Portugal, credit to Santos, the manager, to be able to make that change. And it really impacted the team throughout. And I think this is the best I've seen them play this tournament. I think that would be safe to say, no. And in terms of qualifying, better than they played throughout qualifying because they barely made it through. So overall, a great performance. And now they're off to face a team that, again, is going to do everything to prevent them from scoring. So we'll see how that goes. But they are the favorite. So it's Good to see a great Portugal performance.
Another team very much like, I guess, in line with Argentina, really picking up form as the tournament goes. Gio, Portugal 6. What did you think about this game?
Honestly, whether Ronaldo started or not, didn't really bother me because I want Portugal to win. And he'll get his minutes eventually. That's not what I'm worried about. Whether it be out of discipline or whether it be out of sheer matchup, I think it worked out. I think Ramos's movement without the ball, the cross in where he came near post to sort of poke it by Jan Sommer. I don't think that's something Ronaldo would have necessarily done. I think Ronaldo would have been waiting more in the middle of the box, expecting a high ball for a header. Just the movement in general was a lot better, and even having the option where he's a little younger, he's plenty younger, has that endurance, has that pace to even go up there and press if they, whenever they so choose to, was important. Especially against this team. Apart from obviously his 3 goals, I thought bringing in Dallo to sort of alleviate, the midfielders' work, especially Carvalho's work, because Cancelo would have been up there trying to attack, if he saw 3 goals into the net already, and that could have changed the game completely. But as we know, Dallo is, a more stay-at-home defender, although, he can be included into the attack. I think he understands his assignment, and that's to defend. And I think he did a great job on his side. And again, to add, apart from Ramos's 3 goals, I thought Joao Felix's movement was phenomenal today. Played sharp, crisp passing. Off-ball movement was great. And I thought Bruno led the team very well. And yeah, no, it was just a very fine performance from this Portuguese side, which is scary for it should be scary for everybody else, because they can go more offensive, but now they know they have the luxury of going more defensive as well. So I think if I'm Morocco, this is a completely different side from what Spain has to offer, and I think even beyond that, even France or England, they should be, apart from the game at hand, if they have to, think about the possibility of playing Portugal, they definitely have a lot on their plate.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, Gio. They have a lot of firepower off the bench as well. Ronaldo came off the bench. Even late in the game, Rafael Leao came on as well. But even in midfield, Ruben Neves, Vitinha, who I think actually plays for PSG, who's able to really control that midfield, Matheus Nunes. They have a lot of options as well, so that's really interesting to see how they will manage games later on in the quarterfinals that they have coming up as well. But yeah, just wanted to mention that even though they do have firepower, like you mentioned, Joao Felix, Bruno Fernandes, Bernardo Silva, who are always going to give you great performances, they have still players coming off that can help. And even Pepe got on the score sheet, so everything's looking good.
39 years old, boys. Nothing's impossible.
Okay, so Gio, you mentioned here, obviously now Portugal are in the quarterfinals. Does Ronaldo start in that quarterfinal, or does Santos sit him? What do you think personally, Gio?
I think we could save this for here. Let me give you guys a teaser, but we'll save most of it for our preview episode. But I think he does get to start, because out of a matchup perspective, I think it's a better matchup for him to start against Morocco if Morocco were to sit in this low block. Had been a different team where there's a lot more movement, where they need to press. I think starting Cancelo Ramos wouldn't be a bad option. He can go with the hot hand, but I think because of the opposition they are facing, I think Ronaldo does get to start.
Okay. Mac, final thoughts about Portugal. Obviously, they have, even at wide back, they do have a lot of depth there. I'm not sure if Nuno Mendes is injured long term.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's out of the tournament. Yeah, he's out of the tournament.
That is quite unfortunate, but they still have, obviously, Joao Cancelo to come on if Rafael Guerreiro needs a substitution, but looking very, very strong so far, Mac. What do you think about Portugal as a potential favorite for this tournament?
I don't know favorite for the tournament because I still think I know this may be too soon to say, but against France or England, I'll take either of those teams over Portugal in my opinion. I think they would be the underdog going into that game, but they at least get quote unquote easier path. They don't want to see past this game because that's probably what the Spanish did and didn't really adjust their play style to the team that they're going to be facing. But given how these adjustments made were in this matchup against Switzerland, I'd be safe to say, and I think Gio is spot on in terms of the adjustments they may need to make going into this game, where we're probably going to be more possession based, where we're not going to be able to maybe beat them side to side because they're going to have literally 11 men behind the ball. We need to focus more on something a little bit more of an aerial threat. So the flexibility in their play is something that traditionally and historically they haven't really shown out. But this is an example of it. And if this is a culture shift on that team where it is more about the team, then they'll be in a better position to be more successful in this tournament. So either way, personally for me, I do just want an underdog to continue. So we'll see how that goes. But overall, they definitely are in a good position and probably on form up with Brazil, look to be the best in form at the moment.
Fair. Okay. So obviously we didn't get too much into previewing the quarterfinal games, which we'll do in our next podcast. So for today's podcast, we're going to conclude here. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. Our handle is @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Friday when we preview the quarterfinal games for the FIFA 2022 World Cup. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Take care, guys.
And we'll be back soon. Peace out.